Hey Bat fans, Luke here, back ready to talk another Bat classic, and today we're going to take a look at Batman as the Crow Flies. This one occurred in the pages of Batman, 626 through 630, I believe. I remember I checked before I recorded this video. And it is done by the writer Judd Winnick, artist Dustin Nguyen, and I think colors by Richard Friend. I'm pretty sure Dustin Nguyen did the pencils and the inks on this story. So, about the creative team, Judd Winnick, he holds a little place in my heart. Judd Winnick does, man, because he wrote the story Under the Hood, which brought Jason Todd back to the forefront after his death at the hands of the Joker in the pages of Death in the Family. But also, he did the War Crime Saga, as well as some of us might remember most notably, recently anyway, as he wrote Catwoman in the beginning of the New 52 before handing it off to Ann Nocenti, where she did what she did with it, and I'm not going to go there. But really interesting part of this story in particular, other than it is a pretty good story, is Dustin Nguyen's part in it. This was actually the debut of Dustin Nguyen in Batman stories. Now, I think he did some covers here and there before this story came out, but this is him as in his art within interiors of a Batman story, his primary debut. And if you're not familiar with Dustin Nguyen, he was most notably found not only in this story, but in the pages of the Streets of Gotham series with Paul Dini, where you had the Leviathan, and I think he did House of Hush. And I also believe he also did Heart of Hush. Pretty sure he did. But then most recently, now you'll know him in the Image title Descender, but he was also in Batman Eternal. He did the Batman 28 sneak peek issue for Batman Eternal. He did a lot of the covers for Batman Eternal. He did a couple interior art for some Batman Eternal issues. So Dustin Nguyen is no stranger to Batman and Batman stories, and great Batman stories at that. But this is kind of like his debut. And the covers throughout these 6 issues, or 4 issues, if you're doing individually, these are all done by, let's see, Dustin Nguyen artist. Oh, Richard Friend did the inks, my bad. Clem Robbins did their letter. Ooh, Clem Robbins, he kind of got Scott Snyder kind of going on Witches. So either way, Alex Sinclair did the colors. So my bad, Richard Friend ink, Dustin Nguyen just straight doing pencil. But anyway, the covers for these were done by Matt Wagner. And Matt Wagner, you might know him. I know I most recently covered him in a couple of the Batman stories way back in the Batman continuity, the pages of Legends of the Dark Knight. He did Monster Men, as well as Batman and the Mad Monk. And then he did Trinity, and then now I think he's doing some here and there Image works. Right now, I think Magis, M-A-G-S. Yeah, I can't remember. But I liked his covers on the single issues. And I think it's kind of a bummer that he's kind of put in the same book as Dustin Nguyen, because Matt Wagner's art within itself is okay. It's good, but when you compare it kind of like what Dustin Nguyen's doing, it's not even on the same playing field. So it's kind of putting him in a disadvantage, I think, as far as Matt Wagner and his artwork and his capabilities, because he actually does a really good job. But you kind of compare it to like Dustin Nguyen in the same book. It just kind of doesn't hold up all that well. But anyway, the concept of the story. You're going to see what appears to be the Scarecrow on the front page. I'm going to get into that in a minute. But this cover is kind of misleading. The primary focus of the story, the villain within the pages of this Batman story, is Penguin. And what I like also, in addition to Dustin Nguyen kind of getting like his debut Batman stories in this particular tale, this one also puts kind of Penguin in the forefront. as far as really making a Penguin-centric story. And it's not to say that Penguin is the only focus in this, because it's not. He kind of shares some of the spotlight with Scarecrow, Tim Drake's in it, which we'll get in that in a minute, and we have some hallucinations within. But this really is a Penguin-driven story, and you don't see too many of those lately. And if the ones that you do, they're I don't want to say bad. I don't want to say mediocre, because maybe someone's actually getting something out of it than I am. But to me, I think they're kind of missing the mark. What's going on in Batgirl right now, I'm not really all that interested in it. It is what it is with that. But I think most recently, the thing that probably came close was Jason Fabok and John Layman in the Pages Detective Comics did have a Penguin-centered story, and it dealt a lot with him and the Emperor Penguin, and that was okay. I mean, it wasn't like fantastic, but it was okay. Batman Eternal, I think the very first third of his interaction, while he wasn't like the spotlight, I think his clash with Falcone in the beginning and toward the end, it kind of faded out. But his whole fight with the Gotham crime community, trying to take hold of it, it was okay. Not perfect, but it was okay. I think other than, again, that Emperor Penguin storyline in Detective Comics with John Layman, I think the next thing that probably comes close is the Greg Hurwitz 6-issue mini-story series he did, Pride and Prejudice. It probably have been close, because before that, I'm trying to think, pre-New 52, a standout Penguin story, I'm just not seeing it. I'm sure he had a decent part in War Crimes and blah, 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 and No Man's Land, but definitely not like if you're looking for a villain story that kind of focuses a lot on Penguin, you're probably not going to find one as of late. And this one, again, this is pre-New 52, but I think, again, taking Emperor Penguin, taking Pride and Prejudice, I think this was kind of like the last good Penguin-centered story that I've seen in a little bit. And then, not to say this is a great story, but it's a good story. Where does this story kind of fall in the Batman continuity? Just kind of looking at it, I put this right after Broken City, the one we had with Eduardo Rizzo and Brian Azzarello. And I'm putting this right before War Crimes, and definitely right before Under the Hood, which we'll get to that in a minute. But this is kind of like that circa time period of Batman continuity where this story kind of falls. And what is this story? What's going on? So basically what we find out in the first couple instances, there is these members of the crime community. At this point, there's really no Carmine Falcone to kind of put, the crime community. I keep saying crime community. I got to think of a better word to say it, but the Gotham crime circuit, to kind of keep it under his thumb. There's really no presence for that. The next person close to doing it and trying to expand his influence on it is the Penguin. But right now there's members of the crime circuit that are kind of having these weird experiences. And we open up the pages, there's this one individual right here, and he is just going nuts, just shooting people, just going crazy. And the people around him are saying, what the heck's going on? While they're getting shot at. These are members of the hired help with the Gotham crime circuit. But what's going on through the eyes of this other individual is he's having these hallucinations of all these people he's killed in the past, and he's down in hell, and then rather than seeing their actual bodies, what he's used to when they were alive, they're like members of they're like demons and devils, and he's just going crazy. And when Batman tries to confront him, he's so hopped up on something, then he's so scared that kind of remind me a little bit of Watchmen a little bit, whereas the comedian didn't just jump out the window, he was thrown out. But you could also say this is kind of like Ace Ventura, when one detective was pushed out the gum going way too far of it. But anyway, this person was so scared that he literally ran out through his window on the top of this big, huge skyscraper building and fell to his death. And Batman realizes there's something wasn't right. So what we see is that we go to this morgue, and we see this scene where we have two individuals talking. So this is one of the ones where it's like your cringe meter is gonna go off the charts. And so we see this male and this female talking, and this one male is hitting on the other female. And when we find out that this female is not a female at all, it's Tim Drake undercover, sent by Alfred and Penguin and Batman to get DNA samples of the person who just jumped off the building. Oh, Tim Drake. There are some people that absolutely love Tim Drake. Got my boy Rob, that Rob's Rogues loves Tim Drake, and we got those on the other side, like Travis. I'm sure Travis would probably appreciate this scene a little bit more than Rob, but it is basically even I was like, and I don't think Tim Drake was my favorite Robin. I'm not, and I don't hate him either. That the quote unquote Robins that at the bottom is Duke Thomas, just without question. But Tim's not that bad in my eyes anyway. But I was just, this is just messed up, man. He even got breasts by Alfred. It was just I was like, wow, okay, all right, whatever. So Timmy not really digging it too much, but he does get the DNA sample on the talk screen, and we do find out that individual was under the influence of some sort of psychedelic drug. And once that's happened, we have another individual. Whereas the first individual was just straight up crazy and scared and suffering from fear. This person, again, is not only suffering from fear, but now he's showing some physical changes in his body. And we find out throughout that scene kind of closes, Batman ultimately takes him down, that Batman is paying more attention and putting two things together, that these are members of the crime community, and this, in addition to the effects of the body, which Batman kind of infers is that, hey, Penguin's behind this. Somehow, someway, Penguin's behind this. And with the introduction of these individuals suffering some psychedelic drug and obviously induced fear, he comes to the conclusion that, Scarecrow's in it as well. And when we find out, obviously Penguin denying this the holy hell, but what we find out is that Penguin has hired the Scarecrow to develop this psychiatric drug to, on the initial thought of it, as we see is actually changed toward the end. The initial thought is to sit there and gain control of the Gotham crime circuit, not through much as the sort of like the captains and the lieutenants within. Penguin's obviously trying to call the shots, but not much the captains, lieutenants, but the hired help. You keep the goons, the hired help, in check by keeping them scared of Penguin. You keep them scared, they won't go overboard with the captains and lieutenants, and the captain and lieutenants will produce for Penguin. So that's obviously his angle as to how to keep the Gotham crime circuit in check, keep him in control, do it through fear. And he does this again through Jonathan Crane, and he gives him all the assets and equipment he needs. He gets him a lab. In addition, he gets him an assistant, Dr. Fatawa, I believe her name is, if I remember correctly. But he's obviously trying to do this on the down low. He doesn't want too much attention being brought to him, all because of the motives he's got with the members of the crime circuit. I think it's Fatawa. I'm pretty sure it's Fatawa. Yeah, Fatawa. But in addition to that, he don't want Batman, obviously, on his tail. And when all these two individuals are kind of going crazy, whatnot, it's starting to put some spotlight on Penguin, and Penguin doesn't like it. Which leads me to one of the big critiques I have of this book is that Penguin really does punk out Scarecrow in this, to the point he really dehumanizes him and punks him out. And the thing with the Scarecrow is that I don't think he's really a physically intimidating fellow, not at all, but he's extremely intelligent, and I just don't see the way when Penguin kind of puts him down in the manner that he does. I just don't see Jonathan Crane taking it from him. Now, anyone else, if we're talking, Hush or Joker, or Two-Face, okay, but Penguin is not like a physically dominating person. Now, I know he's got, his umbrella as a hidden AK-47, blah, 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 blah. But I think you might get Scarecrow once, but I don't think you're getting him multiple times, as you see kind of throughout the story. And after that, he's going to be prepared. He's going to hit you with the fear toxin, and he's going to at least get away. He takes a lot. And I don't buy the argument, that he's getting resources for his studies we see throughout. I just don't buy it. So that's kind of like the one critique in that. The Penguin is really a dominating figure over Scarecrow. He really got his thumb on him, and I don't know. Some might argue, if you look at Batman and Robin Eternal, the Mother did the same thing. Well, the Mother, look who she had as her right-hand man. So I don't buy it. I don't know. It was a little too much. It was a little too cringy for me. But either way, moving on. As this goes on, the story continues. Batman, again, he's putting the pieces together. But now what's happening, the members of the crime circuit, there's one critical member of the crime circuit actually has this interaction with this individual here. And we'll just go ahead and call it the Scarecrow. We won't call him Scarecrow. We'll just call him the Scarecrow. This now has crossed a point in the story, whereas before the other two individuals were having hallucinations, whereas these people might also be having hallucinations, but now this figure here is real. This is a real figure, and it's really hopped up. It's like on Venom. It's really hopped up on like steroids, if you would. It can bust through walls, buildings, whatnot, and it's like 14 feet tall. So now we're running into an instance where Batman kind of tracks things down, that not only people are having these hallucinations and looking something like this in a way, but now this thing is real. And Batman goes to take down this individual, and he gets hit with this fear toxin in the middle of doing so. And when Batman gets hit by this fear toxin, it kind of circles into an interesting thing I kind of want to talk about. Now, as we find out here in Batman, he initially thinks Scarecrow's involved, but when they do the analysis of what's in the prior victim's bloodstream, it's not typical what he would find in Scarecrow's fear toxin compound. This kind of remembers a little bit like, remember in Endgame when initially they did the analysis trying to figure out what the heck's going on, how the whole town is being Jokerized, whatnot. When they did the initial analysis, they couldn't figure out, didn't seem like something, this is like a strain of what the Joker would do with his formula, seemed kind of like a branch. This same concept here. This is when Batman does the analysis, this is not a typical thing the Scarecrow would develop. This one's a little different. So this is why at first glance he doesn't totally write off Scarecrow, but he initially doesn't think this is strictly the Scarecrow. And when he gets hit with his fear toxin, this is where I give credit to this, because initially someone's going to be like, well, if you look at it through time, you even hear it through some arguments that Batman has developed some sort of immunity or kind of like an antibody effect toward the fear toxin, whereas he might get hit with it and he'll still feel somewhat of the effects, but it won't be to the extreme as other people's do. But when he gets hit with this one, he really gets taken off the snide, to the point where he gets in the Batmobile, and the Batmobile's got to be like in self-navigation mode, and he starts tripping, to use the lack of a better term. As Alfred's trying to coach him home, calm him down, he starts having these hallucinations, and these first one, as he's in the Batmobile, you actually see Batman right there. He's like going in like straight fetal mode, and is just scared out of his mind, and he starts having these hallucinations with the Joker, and Batman is just going nuts. He starts beating this hallucination, and meanwhile Alfred's looking at him going, who's in the vehicle? There's no one there. There's no one there. But Batman is just tripping out. So Alfred contacts Tim Drake, and Tim Drake, if you're reading Descender right now, this design, I think, what is it, T-23 is the little boy in Descender, even though it's a robot. This looks, you can definitely tell Dustin Nguyen's character models for little kids are really similar. So when Tim Drake tries to get to the Batmobile to try to help Batman, he's even seeing Two-Face. So these monster hallucinations. When Tim Drake gets there, Batman doesn't see Tim Drake. He sees Jason Todd. And this is great because, again, this is right before Under the Hood. And this is kind of like laying the foundation. So we had, Batman's interaction with Jason Todd and Hush. Now you're seeing it here. So you're seeing the initial, the foundation laid for Jason's return. And it's just great, the interaction he has. He's just going nuts, and he has great dialogue between Jason and Batman, and it's just great. But it actually gets to the point where Bruce is able to, get to the Batcave and kind of, try to heal a little bit. But what happened is during that ride home, that Scarecrow was able to follow him back to Wayne Manor, and this is where we have the epic clash. The conclusion of the story, whereas Batman gets down the Batcave, and in order to fight off this Scarecrow, he dons this equipment, which, if you read Core of the Owls, is going to look eerily similar. He gets this Thresher Batman type suit, which now you look back at, if you read Core of the Owls, you kind of wonder, hey, did Scott Snyder get some influence off this story? Maybe or may not, who knows. But, this Batman suit does level the playing field, again, because this thing Batman's going up against, it's extremely strong. It's like 14 feet tall. So it gives Batman the edge. Batman's able to subdue this individual, and then when the effects wear off, we do find out that it is indeed Jonathan Crane, which leads into the ultimate motive with the Penguin in this story. Because initially, as even the Penguin's trying to articulate it through Jonathan Crane, the Penguin's trying to keep the hired help in check through fear. But also what we find out is that, again, Jonathan Crane was working on this genetic splicing, DNA engineering work, and the hired help, Dr. Fatawa, that the Penguin coordinated to get with Scarecrow to get what he needed to take care of the Penguin, actually was able to manipulate him in a way where he was able to combine the efforts with the gene splicing and this new fear toxin to actually get Dr. Crane actually, quote-unquote, infected with it. And all this is going on, Crane never knew. He never knew that he was the person running around being the 14-foot giant. And again, in the book, you kind of have to take it at face value. I'm sure if you're going from even a 6-foot tall guy to a 14-foot being, there's something's gonna happen. Something. Where they're going to get the Hulk effect where your clothes will be all ripped off and you're like, what the heck's going on as you're morphing? But either way, so the motive was actually, keep the hired help in check through fear, but also take out the captains, lieutenants through the Scarecrow individual. So you get rid of the competition, you keep the hired help at bay, and he gains more control of Gotham. And that's ultimately was Penguin's motives throughout, which, again, I get that is typical Penguin. Again, gain more control, more influence, get rid of the competition, keep the workers at bay. That's typical Penguin. And you can find out Fatawa actually had ulterior motives as well. Batman's like, hey, I'm keeping my eye on you, don't think you're going to get away from it. And one of the interesting cliffhangers of the story is that when Alfred is going through the Batmobile, he finds the Robin mask, and he's asking Tim Drake, hey, did you lose your mask? He's like, no, it's right here. Then Alfred's like, well, where did this come from? You have this image of Jason Todd in the back. Again, just laying the seeds and the foundation for the return of Jason Todd, which I just freaking love. So, all in all, this story, it was good. You're better off. I actually highly recommend it. I'm giving this I give it a 3.5 out of 5 flirting with, actually, no, I would give it a 3.75 out of 5. I wouldn't quite give it 4, but this was a fun story. It was a fun story because it had great art. The art within, again, it was just great. Dustin Gwendis really hit home some really good art in this, and he's obviously helped with a great inker and great art colorist. Great art. The story was good, and it was a good story, and it was a good story for Penguin because gave Penguin some credibility, which you don't see a lot of. This is a great Penguin story. Again, there's some cringy moments within it. Obviously, the Tim Drake, and then his being sent to the morgue, how that kind of played out. Not that there's anything wrong with that in particular. It's just how someone didn't notice. And Tim Drake is, never mind. We're going too far. Got that, and the thing with well, actually, in hindsight, that might be the only one that was kind of pushing me a little bit over the edge. But again, it's just the Scarecrow thing. Yes, yeah. I don't know. I just don't know if I'd see Scarecrow getting punked out all that much. So, flirting on a 4, not quite on a 4. Highly recommend this. This will probably be better for you if you actually try to get the dollar issues on this, and if you go in the long stacks. I'm sure someone will be able to have it in their shops to get. It's only 4 issues, again, $6.26 to $6.30. Actually, it's 5, I think. But they're relatively easy to find. Nothing's really going to break your bank. If you're trying to find the trade, however, this is one of those out of print ones. I was looking for this one for a while to get it on my collection. I just couldn't get the price right, but I actually got a really good deal on this. The seller actually kind of met me halfway, so I pulled the trigger on it. Cover price in this was $12.95. You'll see this go on eBay for like $25-$30. So again, unless you actually get a good score, probably better off going through the long boxes and the dollar bins and picking up that way. But I highly recommend it. This was fun. It was a fun story. So all in all, 3.75 out of 5. I highly recommended read if you can get your hands on it. And kind of go from there. So anyway, next video will be Detective Comics. After I hit the gym, get a workout in real quick, we'll talk about the new issue of Detective Comics and kind of go from there. So maybe I'll sneak in one more bat trade. Got a couple. Kind of want to talk about even some newer ones. So anyway, until next video, hit me up in the comments below. We'll bat chat about this story. Again, highly recommend this one. It's good stuff. Until then, take care.